woke is not taking our British standards, but wanting to introduce all niceness to all people except British right-wing people.
In Westminster, for a long time now, there's only been two parties with a real chance of power: the Labour Party or the Conservatives. The Tories were in power for 14 years before the Labour Party won last year's general election in July 2024. But Labour has not brought the change that a lot of people hoped it would. Up and down the country, people's patience has been worn thin by declining living standards and the cost of living crisis. And it's hard to ignore the recurring issue of immigration too. County Durham has felt a lot of these issues harshly. In some areas, nearly 60% of children were living in poverty last year. This desperation for change has been reflected in the recent local elections, where Reform UK won the council in County Durham. County Durham, for a lot of the time, has been a very unique place politically, famous for the union movement, the miners' strikes, and being a Labour stronghold. Now that that's been eroded, I'm speaking to people who live in County Durham to find out why.
I used to run a haulage business, and fuel prices was going through the roof. When the Jolly Drovers pub, which is my local, and we were talking about it, and one of my lads said, "We'll do something about it, boss." I said, "You know what it is? I will." And 2 weeks later, I had the country to a standstill.
So, would you say that was a proud achievement of yours, even now looking back?
Oh yeah, and not just pride, but like the people we met. I mean, you'd have a taxi driver sitting on the back of a low loader with like real high class sort of person, you know what I mean? I'm not like judging people by what they have, what they haven't had, but it just brought everybody together. Everybody agreed with what we were doing. I mean, even 2 o'clock in the morning outside the refinery, you'd have people bringing you pizzas and sandwiches, and I've never been as well fed in my life. But, you know, that was the first thing for me, that the comradeship, the camaraderie was just unbelievable.
And would you say that sense of community is something that's still important to you in politics?
Oh, massively, massively. I mean, the history of even Durham, mining, shipbuilding, farming, we're an industrial county. We are the only county.
I'm a senior operating department practitioner for North Wales NHS, working in the trauma theatres. I've lived in Shotley Bridge for 4 years now, moved here from Gateshead. It's a wonderful part of the world. And I've voted for Reform UK. I feel a bit let down by Brexit. We haven't taken back borders, we haven't taken control of with sovereignty. We're losing our culture. Where NHS is broken, it needs fixed. The NHS, I work in the NHS, and then a lot of people say, no, you're going to lose the NHS. But no, there's other ways I look that I can see when money's wasted. I want to get rid of Benefits Britain and multicultural Benefits Britain as well. You've just got to be really cautious as well because of my views. People think that because you reform that you're a racist straight away. It's not that at all. I've worked all over the world doing charity work for poor people that need it. I've worked in India, I've worked in Tanzania, and I do think that we're losing our identity and we're culture.
I mean, I had a Labour parliamentary candidates come to my door before the election and brainwashed. Absolutely brainwashed. And I wanted to enter in the dialogue and say, like, well, look what your serving Prime Minister has give us, i.e. the winter payments and things like that. I was so mad I couldn't speak. I just said, go away, go away. It's frustration. I mean, I know Starmer had a poison chalice to an extent. I think he's exaggerated it a little bit. But I can't see the difference between any of the two top parliamentary parties. Not at all. You swap the rosettes, that's all you'll do, because the policies are very near the same.
I think anybody other than who we've got at the minute is great. And anybody who is not the party we had before is great. So therefore, it's probably worth a chance on anybody.
To me, I come from a family of miners, farmers. So I like to think we put a little bit of blood and sweat in our country. Now here, Concert, we used to have one of the biggest steel companies in the country, which is gone. Industry's gone. and it hurts me. We should be, as an ex-farmer, independent. We shouldn't be relying on anybody. And in England, what I believe that our English values are is home and country. An Englishman's castle. And that's what I really do feel very strongly about that.
British culture, honesty, integrity, care for one another. So I've stepped back. Like I say, I've moved up to Shotley Bridge 4 years ago from Gateshead, and come to this area, Concert and Shotley Bridge. It's like stepping back 40 years in time. Your neighbours look after each other. There's a sense of community, well-being. Everybody looks after each other. We're integrated, and that doesn't seem to be. So I've came from Gateshead, which was I was at Lowfell Gateshead, and I wasn't far from Bencham also, which was predominantly one of the biggest Jewish communities in Europe.
Yes.
And now there's a migrant shift from immigration coming in, illegal or legal. There's a different culture on the Coatsworth Road. Used to be 30, 40 years ago. It was very much like this road here in Concert High Street and Concert Main Street. And now it's just totally defunct. You've got halal shops all over and charity shops. Good little community shops have just gone. There was a nice Jewish shop there that used to sell lots of stationery and things like that. They're gone. And I think we're losing our identity and our morals.
If there was one headline about why you voted Reform in the General, what would it be for you?
Because I believe they've got a passion to stop the illegal migration.
So would you say that's your biggest issue?
That is my biggest issue with the country, well, apart from Stormont. That is my biggest issue. I'm not racist, and I don't want to be racist, but I don't want to be funding these people breaking into our country illegally, and then getting 4 and 5 star hotels, new phones, money, 3-4 meals a day, clothes and everything they want, when we have veterans and other people living on the streets.
My name is Simon Hennig. Previously I have been a councillor in County Durham for more than 25 years. I was leader of Durham County Council from 2008 when it became unitary until 2021, and I stood down this year, I should say, in May. So I'm no longer a councillor, and I should also say I also was previously a politics lecturer at Southern University. I do think people do have concerns when there's a cost of living crisis and the economy in general is not seen to be doing that well. But nonetheless, there's something else going on here in terms of this wider narrative, which is sort of being used to basically say, look, Britain's becoming a different sort of place. And this is sort of being encouraged by people in power. I think that's the sort of narrative without going into it in all its detail, and therefore it takes on that political sort of edge as well as a sort of economic edge, and then that's how you end up with some of the things we're seeing. And we saw it again going back to referendum, because there were at that time there were rumours about millions of people going to come from Turkey. Because Turkey was going to join the EU and there was going to be free movement. Now, in fact, that was never likely to be the case. Has Turkey joined the EU? No, it hasn't. And a lot of things that were said in that referendum have turned out to be well wide of the mark. So I think that there are genuine concerns that people have when we're in a cost of living crisis, but equally there's a narrative at play, and people and individuals are sort of building this up into a sort of all-encompassing, view, if I can put it like that, which is gaining a lot of traction.
People can legally come here and land on the coast and say, I would like to claim asylum, and then immediately, technically, they are here legally. Do you think that if we had more...
Is it legally low? Because they're illegally, so that's the terminology, illegal immigrant. They've illegally entered the country. So as soon as you enter your foot on the beach, does that mean you're legal? I don't think so. Yeah, that means that you're...
So
Yeah.
if you look at the Refugee Convention
Yes.
and international law,
Yes.
then that we have signed up to by
Yes.
choice,
Yes.
then as soon as someone claims asylum, then, or says they would like to claim asylum, even if they've come by irregular means, which
Yes.
small boats would come
Yes.
into,
Yes.
then technically it's legal. Do you think that that needs to be changed?
Yes. So we need to have a look at the Human Rights Act as well, and I do believe that it's now an invasion. And so why stop at France? I know France accepts more than UK. France accepts more refugees than the UK, but also getting rid of more. They're openly deploying boats. French naval vessels escorting these dinghies over the road to the get rich, and then removing the life vests off these to do the return trip. However, so as soon as they're in our waters, they're our problem. However, if you've got a British fishing trawler, it's European fish. So it's a two-tier system, isn't it? Everything needs to be looked at.
When you mentioned the Human Rights Convention, what do you think that leaving the Human Rights Convention would mean for citizens in general?
I think there still needs to be something in place of that, but something where you can't have these do-gooder lawyers in France, the Calais for Action and things like that, who are openly trying to import illegal immigrants in the country.
And if you could support veterans and support homeless people, which we absolutely should be doing as one of the richest countries in the world, and you could support people coming into the country,
I would want to support people coming into this country illegally.
And what does illegal immigration mean to you?
It means people getting on a dinghy in France. France is not as at home. And people coming through how many different countries who've got enough money to pay the passage over and to pay for their journey over. I do not want to support them at all.
If people claim asylum when they get here and so they make themselves present to the government, do you think that that's acceptable? Or
no, because there should be a legal route for them to come in. They are breaking into this country.
What do you think about the new scheme
One
that's
in,
just
one
started
out?
this week?
Well, what an absolute farce. What is that going to do for anything? So you walk out of that door and another one walks in. What have we achieved?
After hearing what Michael and Margaret had to say, I wanted to speak to someone I was pretty certain wouldn't share their views. Alan Markdom, the General Secretary since 2019 of the Durham Miners Association, has been outspoken in his stance against reform. He has also been critical of this version of Labour and has even given up his membership in the party after almost 5 decades. I think the reason that asylum seeker, refugee, immigrant and illegal immigrant are used almost interchangeably is because of the media coverage and the mixing up of these words quite frequently. It seems the words have been mixed up so many times that it's become the truth. To some people, this is illegal immigration, even if it's not technically illegal. I put this to Alan Markdom when I met him at Red Hills.
When I challenge people, and I'm not the only one, there's thousands, millions of us challenge these preconceptions, which you're right, have been allowed just to drift and drift and drift. So it becomes, because it's been said that many times, it becomes the truth. They're all illegals. Well, no, they're not. But again, we'll learn the lessons from Nazi Germany, which would be that would be the regime that I look at, because you look at the rhetoric, you look at the modus operandi. Joseph Goebbels was using the same thing, just keep saying it. It's the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews. Now it's the Muslim. Just keep saying it long, and people, wait, is there? It's got to be there. Mm-hmm. They're telling us it's them, the mainstream media, the only media that had in Nazi Germany eventually, and the same along there. Well, just keep pushing that rhetoric, And it speaks.
And I took part in the local elections recently. I'm broadly speaking a Labour supporter. The rise of reform is a rejection of reason in favour of emotion. People who vote for reform don't expect anything to improve, and they vote in order to express their anger. And the real underlying question is then, why the anger? Why the complete disillusion with the political process? Because reform has no policies except its results would be, where it gets better, is to put more money into rich people's hands. So you can see that I have a very negative view, and the question really is a social one. How do you give back to people a sense that what they say, or even thinking about what they say, has some relevance, as opposed to the gush and flood of emotion which is thrown out for marketing purposes.
The people we are bringing in that are, in my opinion, the biggest threat to us.
Do you think if we had like a safe route where people could apply for asylum whilst they're not in the country and then come over before, rather than getting here and then having to go through the system, do you think that would work better? Or
I think it would work better, but there again it would depend who was doing the asylum applications.
who was working for the government doing them?
Yeah, because I think in some cases they're just being pushed through because of who they are or because of the nationality. And I mean, we're seeing at the moment people coming into this country from safe countries. What's that all about? What is that all about? You know, if they were genuine, but there again, they're all doctors and engineers, aren't they? They're all doctors and engineers that we need.
If people are doctors and engineers, do you think that they should be allowed to come in?
I think if they were doctors and engineers, they would find a way to come in legally.
It's quite intimidating as well. So I'm going to use Coatsworth again as another example. From what you saw, when I was a teenager, etc., 40 years ago, to what it is now, it's totally changed. Males hanging around street corners, we never used to have that. And if you're intimidated, if you're looking there and you feel like you shouldn't be there, because of the ethnic majority that's there now.
And what worries me and scares me is all these young men coming in, that if they get asylum, they will then be able to bring their wives and children in. And why, if they were in, this is another point, if they were coming to this country fleeing from war-torn zones, why leave your wives and children? Wouldn't you stay to protect them? Wouldn't you stay to fight to make your country great again?
And they don't have a viable way of protecting themselves or protecting the country, but they then come over to create a life to then try and bring their wife and children over in a safer way. Do you buy that, or do you don't?
And they're coming over here, they're fleeing from a country that they don't like the way of life there, they're fleeing from there to come over here to change our country into the country that they've fled from. Does that make sense? You go into Newcastle and let's say Costco, and you know it's very rare to hear the English language because there's so many other languages.
This is the Costco that Margaret was referring to in Gateshead. So I had a look at some of the figures for Gateshead on immigration and language. Only 7.4% of people residing in Gateshead were not born in the UK, and 95.79% of the population speak English as their main language. But I can't speak for Margaret's personal experience of that Costco or the languages she's heard inside.
I'm tolerant of all religions, but when they're rubbing your nose in it and disrespecting our Christian beliefs, then that is going to cause some anger.
There's certain parts of the country that I wouldn't go to. And there's certain parts of the country when I was in the BNP, like I've still got a fatwa on my head. Don't know if it's reason or not, but then I did. And what the hell's a fatwa? I thought it was something with fish and chips. So, there's certain parts of the country, Sharia law, our police officers are not allowed to police those areas.
Where?
Because of the ethnicity of the area. They do not respect.
Where would you say those areas are?
Well, anywhere south of Durham. You don't need me to tell you where they are.
And do you truly believe that police aren't allowed to go there?
I know so. I've been blue lighted through Leeds before.
Do you think anything can be done to increase relations between different groups?
I don't think it can be. They're trying to be, but I don't think it is, because these groups don't want to integrate. I couldn't find any evidence anywhere of any no-go zones for police within England, or for areas which would be dangerous based on the ethnicity or religion of the people who live there. I did find an article on gov.uk though. It confirmed that Sharia law has no legal value in the UK. It also stated that it wasn't unique within religions. Judaism and Catholicism both have very similar practices, called a Beth Din in Judaism and a Roman Catholic tribunal for Catholics. Michael shared with me an experience of one of his relatives who also works within the NHS. Yes. So these patients that's been here for 8 years can't speak a word of English. Come in, interpreters, do not turn up, do not attend, or 2 minutes before the appointment, they'll ring up, say they cannot attend, which means a CNA is that they're still kept on the books but do not attend. 3 strikes and you're off the hook. So there's a huge amount of money being wasted on interpreters, and people are not trying to integrate into society. And I don't want it to sound racist, but it seems mainly to be the Muslim population. That does not want to be Hindus, Sikhs, and other religions seem to want to integrate. I used to go to school and work with some Sikh guys, even learned a little bit Hindi, and you know what I mean. It was good relations, but it seems these guys don't want to integrate.
If you coming up into an election have a manifesto, that is the promises that you are giving to the British public. Haven't had one yet. Nothing was mentioned about winter payments. Nothing was mentioned about the decimation that they cause in British farming. Yet again, when the Conservatives left, they would have jumped on everything by the 26 bus that went past. It's pathetic that these two parties, serving parties, are the best that Britain's got to offer.
Do you think that it's easy for Reform to have a strong following when they haven't been in power anywhere? Obviously, aside from the local elections recently, do you think it's easy for them to have a following because nobody has had the chance to dislike them in power, if that makes sense?
Well, I just hope Reform aren't like the other two, which are full of broken promises. And I'm sure, if not me, a few of people who know Nigel will give him a reminder now and again that, this is a party of the people. And that's what appealed to me, it's a party of the people. And yeah, he's hanging on the board people. Immigration is one of the central sort of policies. There's a lot more to running a country than people coming across that channel in dinghies.
So what do you think is your most central issue that needs to be fixed in the country?
This may sound a bit of a cliche, but make Britain great again.
Going for the Trump line.
Yeah. We have no serving industry. Steelworks have just got to be bailed out from China. Waterworks, well, that's a laugh. So, coal, we are in Durham, one of the biggest coal reserves in the country. but yet we're importing wood chip from Canada to a power station in Doncaster. I mean, where's common sense? I know we are got to be net zero. Well, no. I mean, like a farmer, I'm guilty because the cows I used to have were one of the biggest contributors to carbon dioxide. Going, don't be stupid. Just go to China. Just go to India. Go to America. Go to Russia. This little country of ours is one of the biggest polluters. I don't think so. I think if we burn coal till the cows come home, I don't think we'd be contributing half as much as what China does in a year. So get rid of net zero. Let's get some industry back in the country.
Is it net zero you disagree with, or is it the way that mainstream parties want to do it?
We're not being led, we're being pushed. And that automatically gets my battle. Yes, we've got people in the Green Party who, don't get me wrong, have valid arguments. We've got people on the left, right, centre, whatever it is, all say we should be like jumping on the bandwagon. But no, like we have to look after our country first. And our country, I don't know how many people take much notice, but our country is in a hole of debt. Trillions of pounds in debt, and more so every month. The only way this country can get out of the position it's in is to manufacture. If you just look down the road, Chocol. Back in the miners' strike, it was called Russia.
Yeah.
Because they received money off the Russian government. Now, as far as industry is concerned, I've been involved in haulage, I've been farming, and a number of other businesses. And well, we're working class people, that's the thing. Now, that would be maybe 3 generations ago. Like you say, the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Now, where we are in concert, there's no real industry. It's service industry,
Yeah.
but no industry.
No hard.
No hard, get your hands dirty on the morning sort of industry. And it should, I feel it should have mellowed considerably from being a working class to now a service industry sort of people. £200,000 houses, £300,000 houses,
Yeah.
2 or 3 car families, comfortable. Back in the 70s, it was not like that. But things progress with time. And I feel the Labour Party has moved, but moved in the wrong direction. And with reform have tapped into a vein of your moderately successful 2.3 family on that rise, but are taking more notice of politics. Where in the 70s, you could put a monkey up in concert and it would red rosette and you've got Tarzan. Seriously, that's what it was like back in the 70s. 70s and the 80s. Like I'm saying, mum and dad, 70s, 80s, 2 of the roughest decades for industry, but they were staunch Labour.
Yeah.
And now we're into the 2025 and people are more comfortable, but communication is another thing. Facebook, X or whatever you call it, and TV. Like if I'd had a mobile phone on Facebook back in the fuel protest days, whoa.
I headed over to Chelsea Street to speak to some voters there and see what their opinions were of the Labour government and Labour Party. Simon Hennig also told me what his opinion of the situation was on why Labour are not being perceived in a positive light at the moment.
Well, reform really seemed to have touched the hearts of people in the local area, that's for sure. They're talking common sense. The big problem reform will have, because they've got a huge groundswell of support at the moment, but the big problem they're going to have before the next election, and I hope the next election is about 4 years away, so they've got time to put together a really talented team, because if they haven't got that, they've got no chance. So, the Labour Party, well, I've always said all through my life, Labour wreck the economy, that's what they do. I remember the winter of discontent, you were far too young for that. Yeah. You are. But there were bins weren't being emptied, everybody was on strike, that was in the 70s. And then the last time Labour left office, they left a note on the Chancellor's desk saying, sorry, there's no money left. Did you know that? It's incredible. And now, they're just wrecking the economy again. Rachel Reeves doesn't seem to know what she's doing. In fact, none of the front bench, there's about 13 of them, I think, none of the front bench have any business experience. Now, how can you run the country when you don't know how to run a business?
Would you have been a Conservative voter beforehand,
Yes,
do you think?
yes, very much so. I believe in standing on your own 2 feet, earning your living, paying your taxes, doing what's right. But there's far too many taking out of the system, not enough putting in. And you see, here's another thing, Bridget Phillipson. We're going to have 6,500 new talented expert teachers. Well, where are you going to get them from? Because the expert teachers are already in jobs, aren't they? So where are you going to get them from? How do you become an expert? By doing the job for a long time and learning it. Anyway, suddenly, they're not going to get 6,500. By the way, 6,500 teachers sounds good, but that equates to half a teacher per school around the whole, across England and Wales. So that's not too good, is it? And then Keir-Starmer stands up and says, we're not going to spend the money on teachers, it's for affordable housing. So there we are. So reform have got a clear run, so long as nobody messes up. But you know, one thing that concerns me again about reform is it's about Nigel Farage. He's a hell of a communicator, a really interesting guy, a lot of common sense, but if he fell ill or something happened to him, whatever, I think they would fade away because they haven't really got another figurehead. They've got some good people, but you see them falling out. Rupert Law, for instance, they fell out with Rupert Law, who could have been a great chancellor, for instance. A lot of business experience, good man.
Do you think in a way the risk becoming a bit of a cult of personality around Farage?
There always is, because these days, and you're proving it now, it's a television age. You've got to look the part. Farage does. He talks a lot with common sense. People follow him. He's been out in the channel again watching these boats coming in. What are we doing about the boat? Nothing. What's our navy for? I don't know. You know, we're just letting these people come. Yes, I mean, you've got a passport, haven't you?
Yes.
What's it for? You don't need one. Just get on a boat and come anyway. We should all go to Beverly Hills and have a house with a swimming pool, because, you know.
Do you think that we should be a country, because obviously in the past we've been a country that has colonised a lot of places, whether you think that's right or wrong, it's what we've kind of done.
That's our history.
Empire.
That's our history.
Do you think that we do then have slightly more responsibility to the world to provide somewhere?
No, we've already provided them with standards they never had. We've given that to them already. It's on them to sort themselves out. Why are all these people coming from other countries? Because the governments haven't sorted it out. They haven't taken responsibility. Things get taken away, like through corruption or whatever. You know, there's a shop down here that says books and bread for Kenya, and they'll do things like water projects. The minute you leave, the water pumps will be taken and sold, and the money goes in the pockets of the rich, and the people are still without water. And it's been the case all through my life. I've seen adverts for water for Africa. It never changes. It's corruption, you see, and it's all down to government. So there we are.
Conservative and Labour have done nothing for working class people.
What do you think reform can offer working class people?
They can offer hope, right? A better way of life for all, and that's all you really want.
Some of what the Labour government's doing, commendable as it is come over as very technocratic and probably not that interesting to people. So, you know, whether it's, I don't know, plans for new housing, new towns, renewable energy, actually it can come over quite technocratic, and what people really care about is the bottom line on their household's finances.
Like, what's it going to mean for me?
That's exactly what's it going to mean for me. Am I going to be better off? It comes down to that. And I think the government need to try to put everything into those terms. You know, where we've got an example with reform, for example, saying net zero means people are worse off because it means you're paying higher energy bills. Now, you know, that needs to be countered in terms of if that's not the case, and also why net zero, for example, is important. And at the moment, we're just not seeing that counter narrative coming through.
So we've talked a little bit about your time at UKIP.
Mm-hmm.
What happened when you left? What was the reason for leaving?
Grooming gangs. A very good friend of mine from Keith's daughter was never mind.
Sorry, just have a minute, sorry.
So I was furious. All this was going on in Leeds 20 years ago, and nobody was taking any notice. I was trying to get out there as much as I can. A friend of mine says, "Oh, you want to speak to Nick Griffin?" I says, "Who the hell's Nick Griffin?" BNP. I says, "Oh, is that national?" I had a clue at the start. Rang him up. Next thing he's at my back door with 3 other men in dark suits and my wife panicking. So, come in. We spoke about the situation that I found Britain in, and he said, "Look, we need somebody like you on board. We need, we need your sort of leadership qualities. Like, when you walk into a room and people listen, you're not talking crap." I think the same was then. Please join us. And when I did, membership trebled.
Wow.
I think people found in me that I'm not a liar, and I'll tell you the truth, whether you like it or not.
If we bring up grooming gangs, etc., and they've been prosecuted, they're given a jail sentence, but they can't be sent back because their country's too unsafe. What happens when it's too unsafe for our children? What happens when it's too unsafe for the population? Same happening in Germany. There's a huge rise in sexual offences against white German women. When do you say no? When does that happen?
I think this is such an emotive issue
Yes,
as well when you start talking about sexual assaults being on the rise and all that kind of thing. But when the information was released about the grooming gangs and it kind of all came to light, the information was only meant for use in those specific areas. But if you look at the rest of the country, it's disproportionately white British males.
I've read that report as well, and it's a lot of it that's been covered up by police forces and social services in each thing. There's a huge amount of what I perceive to be a cover up, where they've never asked or it's never been divulged. So that.
So you think the information in the report is incorrect?
If you did a study group, that if you were doing an experiment study group, that study group would be inept. Really, it would be no good whatsoever.
Just the raw data in the studies is not correct.
No, it's not there. It's covered. That's my perception, and may prove to be wrong. And hands up, but that's my perception, and that's not. It's a huge, and that's why you've got the swing in County Durham. That's why you've got the swing nationally. Certain political situations, it's starting to rise now. These have always been there, but it's taken years and years and years and years, and now it's time. It's enough, and people are turning. People I would never ever thought would say anything. Very quiet people, people at work, nurses, even from different cultures, non-British culture, and they're all saying the same.
Do you think they've almost been given a political home, but the feeling was there the whole time?
Maybe yes, but there's been a change of allegiance as well. County Durham, huge Labour area.
Well, Nigel Farage is a joke. I don't see how anybody takes him seriously, but unfortunately they do. He doesn't have anything outside his Brexit rants, and I think the unfortunate things with Keir-Starmer is he does not appeal to the populace, to what Labour used to stand for in County Durham. I'm a miner's son, and I suppose our traditions come from them, and I'm afraid they've lost their way.
Even then, you've got the left and they're divided now because they're not left enough. So you've got Jeremy Corbyn wanting to make his own party up because they say Starmer's just another Conservative, and that's why I think reform is different. Mm-hmm. They're starting to move, and that's one of my reasons I voted for reform.
The North East County Durham has always been staunch Labour. So if you always vote in Labour, they'll always take it for granted, take it for granted. It wasn't until the last election, when the red wall crumbled a little bit.
Yeah.
And then obviously Labour got back to grassroots. Got some of the old boys motivated, some of the old miners that's still pottering about, granddad did this and that. And they pulled it back, just in some cases. But we basically give the Labour Party the rope to hang us with.
So I think what we've seen is a gradual change, but a bit more gradual than maybe the sort of reaction to this May's results. It hasn't just happened in the last few months. I think a key point, probably the key point, was the referendum in 2016 on the EU. Why was that such a key point? Well, first, because places like Durham voted to leave, which wasn't what was anticipated, and obviously wasn't anticipated that the UK would vote to leave. Led to an immediate sort of prime ministerial resignation in David Cameron. But since then we've had a succession of prime ministers. We've had greater instability, arguably at national level. But I think also because not just Labour's position in that referendum, but afterwards Labour was seen to be possibly unfairly trying to sort of obstruct that that decision. I think personally that's unfair because it was a Conservative government in place under Theresa May that struggled to get the legislation through. But nevertheless, that sort of rumour, if you like, that view, that belief took hold in communities that somehow Labour was seen as blocking what people had decided. And I think that is the critical period, in not just in Labour's sort of decline in County Durham, but actually in many such areas across the country. And we need to remember that in 2019, the Conservatives won half the MPs in County Durham. Yeah. So the Conservatives were only just behind Labour. Now that was unheard of for the Conservatives to have 3 MPs and to do so well. So yes, in a way it's unprecedented for Reform to do so well, but actually we'd seen that change starting to happen, I would argue, from 2016 onwards to through the 2019 general election, and then to the present day. So I think it's sort of been building for quite a while.
Most of the circle that I socialise with are either Conservative or Labour.
Right.
So Reform's a new party.
Yeah.
And then when you do discuss later on, after the fact of the voting, they all voted Reform.
Right, okay.
So there's me, I vote Reform. Time for change. But let's hope, somewhere down the line, Mr. Farage will be spoken to by somebody. And just don't be our like Mr. Trump. Be like Mr. Winston, for the people. Mm-hmm. Because he's going to make himself look the biggest idiot in politics. When they do win, they'll walk into number 10 and go, what now? That's what's got me worried. You need experience. You need somebody at the helm that knows what they're doing. I'm not saying the Labour or the Conservatives do. Yeah. But, you've got to have some sort of leadership quality. It's not the leader that's there, it's the people that are behind them that puts the leader there.
Yeah, supporting them.
It's the support and the help. If you don't have that sort of structure, well, what do you got? You've got a ship with a captain but no crew.
The way your community is being treated is unbelievable. I think somebody in the Treasury got their sums wrong when they set the financial limits, or could it be They just want lots of land.
When the protests were in London for farmers about the inheritance tax, Farage stand up there, we support our British farmers, reform will do this, reform will do that, and everything. 1 week later, he's on national media, well, I see no problem bringing chlorine-infected chicken abroad. Which boat are you jumping on today?
Because you can't be both.
No. And if you're going to swap policies like that, I mean, I have a lot of my friends, and unfortunately, I have a lot of friends up down the country that were in London, were reform. Farage is the man. Him and Jeremy Clarkson, they were the new ambassadors of farming. Mm-hmm. And then for him to put a knife in his own foot, well, I see no problem bringing chlorine for chicken into the country. That destroyed him from me.
Yeah.
And as a one-trick pony, we'll work in politics. Same thing happened with UKIP, same thing happened with BNP. BNP, racist party, UKIP, very right-wing party, which they weren't. None of them really retired old-age pensioners that were doctors, solicitors, very respectable people, but didn't have enough of them. I'm Andrew Spence. I believe in equality for all. I believe in true politics, and for the people to benefit for the better. If you're coming on the dinghy, if you're coming on the 747, as long as you're here to abide by our laws, our rules, our regulations, contribute to the country, be something positive for the country, fair dues. If you're coming here to groom and this, that, and the other, bye-bye. If you don't like it here, you're having rallies and things where you're burning out flags and things like that, you just get on the Dover and bye-bye. Don't like it, don't, just go. That's freedom of expression, freedom of right. So, I don't know, but reform, to me, don't ever mention right-wing reform, because you'll be shut down very quickly. Because they've got that one right.
Yeah.
Because the minute somebody does accumulate them being right-wing, it'll stick.
Reform's gone through a number of stages already, and actually in the last few months there's a lot of evidence they have sort of shifted to be in a position to attract more previous Labour voters. So an example of that would be coming out in favour of the renationalisation of steel in Scunthorpe to sort of save that site there. So I think there has been a bit of a repositioning, whereas previously, I think if you look at not just Reform but previous sort of anti-EU, I could put it like that, like UKIP, UK Independence Party, I think it's more easy to categorise them in that area, but clearly they're not going to win elections, so therefore this is a key part of Reform broadening their support base, and I think that's part of the reason therefore for that sensitivity, because they're trying to present themselves now as a Reform as a much more sort of all-encompassing group and party. It's it's an interesting question. I can't answer obviously why individuals might, I can only speculate as to why they might sort of have sensitivity about that terminology. It may be that obviously if their families have always voted Labour, then they're sensitive about voting for someone else, and obviously don't want it to be categorised on the right. So that it may be, as simple as that. What I would say is that the important thing I think this does point to, where in a sense I agree with some of your Reform respondents, is that I do think in some ways this is a new paradigm, this is a new sort of political party that can't be easily categorised. Now, having said that, I still think that a lot of those bits of what that makes the party up are probably easier to categorise on the right than the left, but possibly not all of it. But clearly, if you're looking at something like, let's say migration, for example, or if you're looking at some of the sort of traditional patriotic elements of those parties' views, it still looks more like it's a sort of right-wing party than a left-wing party. But as I said before, you've got elements like nationalisation and one or two others, and they were great pains to say they weren't opposed to trade unions. So there were one or two other things coming out in the last few months. So I think they see themselves as a new party, and to some extent they are, and that's why they've done so well in the last local election. It's also why I think the main parties are having such difficulty dealing with them, because they are different to what's come before, and therefore expecting them to just fail because that's what happened before. To say the UK Independence Party didn't really break through, I think is very naive and dangerous, risky to those big parties, because I do think this is something new, and we're seeing it in other places. Obviously most notably Donald Trump.
Yeah.
In a different situation, because obviously the Republican Party sort of morphed into a slightly different entity within sort of MAGA and Donald Trump, whereas here we're talking about a different party sort of potentially supplanting the Conservative Party. But you're dealing with some fairly similar sorts of things that are being said, and similarly with Trump you could argue the same, that there are elements of things that are not necessarily right-wing. It's difficult to sort of categorise, like tariffs, for example. Let's just take one example. There's nothing actually inherently conservative about tariff policy.
If you want to call me far right, call me far right. But I just think I'm right. I want this country, and I'm old enough to remember when this country was good. I just want this country to be good again. And if you want to call me far right, call me far right. I've had far worse insults slung at me. I'm not racist. I believe we need people from other countries to help support industries in this country. Bigoted? No. What right have they to call me far right? Am I going to call them far left? I really couldn't waste my breath. But no, if they want to call me all these things, call me all these things. I'm certainly not uneducated. I'm certainly intelligent. I'm certainly passionate about this country. I don't want my hard-earned pennies, for which I've worked all my life, to support people who do not respect the ideals of this country and who are being put up in hotels, 4 and 5 star, being given everything for free. And if that makes me racist, then I'm racist. And if that's a crime, then I'm a criminal.
3 people, senior politicians actually, saying, "Oh, there's something behind this, don't go do this interview." I was like, "It's just a young student trying to get herself on the ladder." Yeah. And even this morning I got a phone call, she works for the Non-Nickel.
I don't.
Everybody's like doing deep searches on you. Like, I don't mind, I've got nothing to hide. If somebody can benefit from my life experiences, so be it, it'd be brilliant.
But yeah, I had
But never mention right wing and reform, because at the moment reform is on the peak of a wave.
Yeah.
And you'll really get people's backs up.
Andrew was referring to the fact that when I put on my post looking for people to take part in this documentary, I perhaps mistakenly mentioned that Reform were right-wing. I received a lot of backlash in the comments with phrases like, "I'm not right-wing, I'm just right." It was also extremely hard to get people to trust me enough to talk to me, and experienced, like Andrew said, people doing deep searches on me, whatever that means. Although, I must admit, as a 24-year-old student journalist, I was a little excited to think that people thought this documentary could make such a big impact. Why 3 senior politicians told Andrew not to take part in this, I'm not entirely sure, but I am grateful that he did. What do you reckon of the leadership in Reform currently?
Well, haven't known Nigel.
I was going to say, I feel like you've got quite a unique perspective that not a lot of the voters are going to have.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with Nigel for 2 years.
Yeah.
He's passionate. He believes, I would say, a good 50% in what he's saying. So that's a lot better than some of them. But I just think there's something missing. Yeah, like he speaks with the golden spoon, which up here, you know, I know like his meetings and all that are attended to, sold out within a matter of hours.
Yeah.
Sold out though? Why do you have to charge to go and see somebody speak? That's another bone of contention. I don't want to go and sit here, pay 5 or 10 or 20 or 40 or 50 pounds. Hear Nigel Farage speak.
Because you're making your own electorate pay to see you.
Yeah. I mean, is it a concert or are you talking about what you want to see better for this country? That was a little bit frustrating. And it's all run by money men. It's a limited company, which also rings bells. Limited liabilities. Oh, I wonder what's going on there. If that hits the wall, I wonder who gets all the millions. We need a party of the people. That's it. Reform people are looking at, you know, they are listening, or they seem to be listening. And as long as they seem to be listening, people will vote for them. Where you get to the Labour and Conservatives, they don't need to listen to us.
So do you think it's the perception that, because Nigel Farage has become a character in himself, even aside from politics, hasn't he? He is, it's like a Trump type figure.
Yeah.
He's become an entity in his own right almost.
And it'll be self-destruction.
And do you think that is what's appealing to people, is that strong leader and the charismatic leader? Because whether you like him or not, he is charismatic when you see him talking to people and when you see him speaking. People love him. And do you think that's what has attracted so many people to his politics rather than the politics itself?
When I speak to somebody, I shake their hand and I look at them. Nigel Farage can't look in the eye. And that's, I mean, some people have different mannerisms. I'm old school. I'll give you a good shake of the hand and here's my heart and let's see what we can do. Now, as far as people are thinking that he's the man that's going to fix it all, following Trump's policies, well, just Mr. Trump pretty frustrated on the news this morning. What happens on that side of the water ain't going to happen here.
Yeah.
Totally separate country, so don't try and make Britain great again, because that ain't happening. Not by that policy. Yet again, there should be a party of the people, and I just don't think Nigel wants to go out in every county or location or area and just like, you here, come here, Joe Blogs, do a background search on you, obviously, but like, right, let's hear your views, come on board, and have a party within a party of local people. Have the local, like, Durham County Councils, full of reformed councillors. Bang, what a great victory. They haven't a clue. 3 of them's resigned already. That cannot be seen. That, yeah, it was a massive success. But tomorrow it's a fish and chip wrap up here, but nobody wants to know about it. And if they're going to fall by the wayside like they're doing now, they've got no chance of winning a general election.
Do you think that their success so far before a general election could be the beginning of their downfall? Because you've got time to let people down, or... Yeah,
he peaked too soon. But that was the way that he hit an absolute gold mine, at timing-wise. If we look at if you just need to look back at what was leading the news up to that period of time, a lot of it was migration, immigrants and things. He just couldn't have timed that any better.
I think Reform are passionate, and that's what is lacking in this. Starmer, he's got absolutely no passion. And I mean, his voice coach, I mean, I hope he didn't pay it. Probably got another freebie. Reform are passionate about it. And it's the passion that Reform have that make me feel a bit more positive about this country. That if they get in, I honestly believe that hotels will stop. They'll deport them all back. And just make Britain great again.
My family were mainstream Labour.
Right.
Father said that farmers always did better under a Labour government. I'm glad he's not here to say this lot. And when I started the fuel protest against Tony Blair, stood against Tony Blair, my mother disowned me for a few months.
Right, okay. So
That's how
really,
staunch
really
Labour.
Labour.
Really Labour. I used to vote Labour. But it was at that time when Blair took over, it wasn't really Labour. It was Conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of, I met a lot of senior politicians when I was in Europe, when I was in Brussels, and I met a lot when I was in Westminster, being groomed, as the saying is, to become a politician. And there's a lot of people who don't have their feet on the ground, right? Never had to work, never had to get their hands dirty. And if you haven't had the privilege of working for a living, how can you expect to tell people how to do it? You've got to have experience. That's why I always go on to this. You've got to have people, representatives, a board from a specific area, I don't know, north of the Humber, south of the border, and that area there must be held with certain people. I know it sounds like socialism in a way, doesn't it?
A little bit.
It does sound like socialism. Maybe I haven't thought this one out right. But it's maybe socialism might work, I don't know. But until you have a representative of the area, you know what the area is suffering. I mean, when Concert Steelworks was shut.
That was a disaster for the area.
Oh.
And the impact of it's still being felt now.
Well, my dad used to run wagons out there, and I remember driving wagons around that steelworks at 13-year-old, sheeting them up with steel ingots to go away down on Monday. Then next to my farm, there used to be Eden Colliery. I remember going and standing with a pitman. My mum used to have these two big aluminium churns full of tea, and I used to carry the big box of fried egg sandwiches with red sauce as a kid, and stood out there shoulder to shoulder. So maybe some of you did this. I stood shoulder to shoulder as a kid at concert. I did it at Eden Colliery. So maybe I am a Labour man. Maybe I am a, I don't know. But reform, getting back to reform, I voted for reform. I just hope it's not a broad promise.
I'll be very interested to see what happens to reform over the next 4 years. Will they manage to ride the wave of success they've had this year into next year and then into a general election? Or will Andrew's fears come true, that they've peaked too soon and won't be able to hold the momentum? From what I could tell by talking to people who voted Reform, Reform seemed to have been so successful in County Durham because they've successfully tapped into a vein of people who felt abandoned by Labour, and not only abandoned by Labour, but abandoned by every other party. Reform, as you've heard, has made people in this documentary feel passionate about politics again. Reform and its supporters' main issue is immigration. This is something that Reform have managed to use to their benefit. With immigration making headlines every day, protests outside of hotels, the riots last summer, and now Operation Raise the Colours taking over many towns and villages in County Durham, it's really hard to overstate the impact that immigration has had on politics recently. Will Reform focus on this too much and aim becoming even more of a one-issue party, alienating people who don't find this the biggest issue in the country, like Andrew, for example? Overall, I think that Reform have managed to gain so much support in Durham because of the emotional side of these issues. They have managed to capitalise on people's fear and resentment of the levels of immigration, and how bigger parties like the Labour Party and the Conservative Party are being perceived to have forgotten about them and let them down.